Hi there, and welcome to Her Season of Strength, where women over 40 reclaim their bodies, their energy, and their voices without apologies. I'm Kim Duffy, registered dietitian, personal trainer, mom, and your biggest hype woman when it comes to aging like you mean it. This show isn't about chasing skinny or counting wrinkles. It's about building real strength, physical, emotional, and hormonal. Each week, I'll share straight-talking nutrition tips, sustainable fitness strategies, and conversations that help you feel powerful in your skin once again. Menopause isn't an ending, it's only the beginning. This is your season of strength. Hello, and welcome back to Her Season of Strength. I am so happy you're here, and thank you so much for just taking a couple minutes out of your day to listen in. So today's topic was something that I came up with when I was scrolling around on social media, and I believe it was one of my personal training type threads. So not specifically people who are, specialists in nutrition, but many times are also giving nutrition advice as well. And one of them asked about a client who had asked him about eggs and if eggs were bad and how many eggs they should eat in a week if they have high cholesterol. And I wanted to address this because I feel like even though I feel like it's kind of old news for me, I don't think it necessarily is for many people. And I think that many people are still getting some misinformation, even from their healthcare providers, about like, oh, your cholesterol is high, so you should avoid eggs. I don't know when, eggs became a culprit at one time with just some crappy research. And I wanted to take a dive into this because I love eggs and I'm eating eggs. I eat eggs most days. But I do think that there are some things that we need to consider. So today I want to dive into what cholesterol really is, what the research says about women's heart health after age 40, and what you can actually do to support your numbers without living on kale and living on the treadmill doing massive amounts of cardio. So first of all, I have actually had borderline high cholesterol since I was in my 20s, and it runs deep in my family. My mom's cholesterol has been in the 300s since she was in her 20s as well, and she has tried statins, which are those medications that help to lower your cholesterol and improve your lipid panel, off and on, but she doesn't like the side effects. So she has tried to make other changes to decrease her total cholesterol. For me, despite eating healthy and exercising, my total cholesterol has always hovered just above normal in those low 200s. The good news is my HDL, or my good cholesterol, is high. My LDL, or kind of my not so good cholesterol, is moderate, and I have low blood pressure. So when I go to the doctor, they basically, my ratio or my cardiovascular risk is very low, which is great. So instead of medication, my doctor and I focus on changes in my lifestyle, how I move, how I manage stress, how I eat. And I share this because I want you to know high cholesterol doesn't automatically mean that you're unhealthy or you're doomed to heart disease. It just means your body's asking for a little more attention. Okay? So here's the thing. A lot of women hear high cholesterol and instantly panic. We've been told for decades that cholesterol is bad, period. So let's pull back that curtain on what cholesterol actually does and why that story is a little bit more nuanced than that, especially for women in midlife. So first of all, what is cholesterol? Cholesterol is actually a fatty substance. It's made by our livers and it's carried through our blood by proteins. So these combinations are called lipoproteins. You need it. It helps to build our hormones, vitamin D, cell membranes, breaking it down into those numbers that you get when you go to the doctor. So our LDL, otherwise known as low density lipoprotein, it carries our cholesterol to our tissues. And too much of that can lead to buildup in our arteries, or you probably also heard it called plaques, right? When those plaques break off is when we can have heart attacks, we can have strokes. So that's obviously a dangerous thing. So we want to really limit that buildup in our arteries. Now our HDL, or our high density lipoprotein, it actually carries that excess cholesterol away from our tissues and back to our liver for removal. Triglycerides are stored fats. And when we have high levels of triglycerides in our blood, they can signal that we have extra calories and sugar hanging around. So here's something that many people don't realize, that about 75% of cholesterol in our blood is made by our liver. It's not from the food that you're eating. Okay? That's why someone can eat perfectly healthy and still have high cholesterol. Hello, genetics. And for women, hormones play a major role. So estrogen actually helps to raise our HDL and keep our LDL lower. So once our estrogen levels begin to drop in perimenopause, that balance can shift and our cholesterol numbers can often creep up, as well as our cardiovascular disease risk. So let's talk about facts for a minute, because this part is eye-opening. According to the American Heart Association, cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death in women, responsible for roughly 1 in 3 female deaths each year. That's about 1 woman every 80 seconds. After menopause, women's risk of heart attack increases 2 to 3-fold because of hormonal changes that raise our LDL and lower our HDL. And by age 60, nearly 45% of women have total cholesterols above 240 milligrams per deciliter, which used to be considered a men's health problem, right? Usually when we think of heart attack and heart disease, we do think of men, because women are protected up to, once they hit menopause, and then our risk goes up very, considerably. Studies show that women are more likely to experience silent heart attacks, meaning there's fewer of those classic symptoms like chest pain, and you might see things more like fatigue, nausea, or shortness of breath. So I understand your cholesterol isn't just about a number, it's about protecting our heart and energy for the next 30 years or more of our life. So if most of your cholesterol is made in your body, what causes it to go high? Spoiler, it's not just eggs or bacon or butter. First of all is genetics, like we talked about. If a parent or a sibling has high cholesterol, you're much more likely to have it as well. If you are eating a diet that is high in saturated fats, trans fats, and added sugars, we can likely see a higher LDL and triglyceride level. Yes, I said sugars. That has nothing to do with you might eat, candy that says it's cholesterol free, but it can still increase our cholesterol and increase our risk. Next is a sedentary lifestyle. Movement actually helps our body to use cholesterol and fats more efficiently. Next is hormones. Our estrogen, as we talked about, as it declines, it changes our fat metabolism. Stress can also increase our cortisol levels, which is that fight or flight hormone, which can increase our triglycerides and inflammation in our body, increasing our risk of cardiovascular disease. And lastly, sleep. Poor sleep raises our LDL, and it can also raise our blood sugar, decreasing our insulin sensitivity. And the kicker is that menopause magnifies all of these factors. So what worked for us at age 30, it doesn't cut it at age 50. And that's okay. It just means that we need a new plan, not a new personality, okay? So now that you know what's behind your numbers, let's talk about how to interpret them and where to put your energy after age 40. So when you get your labs done, don't just look at that total cholesterol. Ask your doctor for your HDL and LDL numbers. Ask him for triglycerides. Ask him for the ratio of total cholesterol to HDL. And if possible, an advanced lipid panel to check actual particle size and inflammation markers. Because truly, you may have high LDL, but they might find that they are not like the size and the density might show that you are not as at high of risk of cardiovascular disease as just kind of the standard. So it's possible to have high cholesterol but low risk if your HDL is strong, your LDL particles are large and fluffy, and your blood pressure, blood sugar, and inflammation are all low. So think of your numbers as kind of just a piece of that puzzle, not a single grade on the test. Remember, heart health, it's not only about cholesterol. It's about, the big picture, your blood sugar, your insulin sensitivity, inflammation, overall inflammation in the body, high stress levels, poor sleep, how much muscle mass you have and how much movement you're doing. All of those things are going to affect how cholesterol behaves in your body. So you came for some practical advice here. So let's get into the how. These are habits that research consistently shows can improve our cholesterol and our heart health. So first of all is lifestyle and nutrition. In order to raise our HDL or our good cholesterol, we need to move daily. Try to, get at least in 150 minutes per week of that moderate activity or 75 minutes of vigorous movement. Strength training, yep, you're right. I'm going to put this into everything I ever talk about, but strength training 2 to 3 times a week, because muscle acts like that metabolic furnace, right? It's burning calories. We need to add in those omega-3 rich foods, like the fatty fish, like salmon, tuna, sardines, or those nice nuts and seeds, chia, flax, walnuts. All those are great sources of omega-3 fatty acids. Enjoying avocado, olive oil, and nuts for heart-healthy fats. Moderate alcohol. We talked about, alcohol and how that affects us in my last episode called Wine Not. Small amounts of resveratrol, or that red wine, can raise our HDL, but more than 1 drink a day can actually raise our triglycerides instead. So you can see where it's not about a little is good and more is better. This is about a small amount is enough. And I talked about in my last podcast episode that sometimes the question is, do we need any? And is there other ways for us to get those good antioxidants that help to raise our HDL in good foods, right? And then lastly is don't smoke. Tobacco can lower our HDL dramatically. So next, and here are some ways to lower our bad cholesterol. We can swap out, we talked about saturated fats, so trying to swap out that butter and the cream, which are higher in those saturated fats, and instead, choose like olive oil, avocado oil, or, yogurt-based alternatives. Add soluble fiber. I always find this interesting because, they talk about Cheerios. It drives me nuts, like Cheerios commercials, and they're like, just eat a bowl of Cheerios and it's going to lower your cholesterol. And the reasoning behind this is because it has soluble fiber. Do I think that there are much better ways for you to incorporate like quality soluble fiber rather than that processed stuff that we're seeing in Cheerios, which really don't have much fiber at all? Even 5 to 10 grams of soluble fiber per day can lower our LDLs by about 5%. So oats are a good source, but try ones that are not as processed, right? So like oatmeal. Beans and legumes, lentils, apples, and psyllium husk. Those are also all good sources of soluble fiber. Next, limiting our fried and processed foods that contain those trans fats. And yes, I know that trans fats, you'll see all of those labels on foods that say 0 trans fats. They can say that if there is less than 1 gram of trans fats in one serving. How many servings are you going to eat of that? So like say it's Oreos, right? 0 trans fats in one serving, which is 2 cookies. Are you going to eat 8 cookies? That'd be 4 servings. If so, you're going to be getting a lot more, and you're probably going to, you're going to be getting a lot more trans fats than the 0, right? It adds up. So, eating more plant-based meals. So trying to get more of those good plant foods. A study in the Journal of American Medical Association showed that a diet rich in plant proteins, nuts, and fibers can actually lower our LDL by up to 30%. Right? So trying to incorporate in those good high fiber plant foods, those whole grains, the beans and legumes, nuts and seeds. Those are all going to help to increase the amount of fiber you're consuming overall, but that can help to lower our LDL or our bad cholesterol. And then lastly, it does have to do with weight. So even losing 5 to 10 pounds if you are overweight or obese, right? If you're someone of normal weight, obviously this is not going to help. We don't want you to just continue to lose weight because it is likely very strongly genetic related. But excess weight can definitely increase our cholesterol, right? It can raise our bad cholesterol, our LDL. and it can increase our total cholesterol. So trying to maintain a healthy weight, and you can see improvement by, even a 5 to 10 pound weight loss can lower our LDL by as much as like 5 to 8%. So next lifestyle and nutrition tip would be in order to lower our triglycerides, cutting out those added sugars. Even like a 12-ounce soda can raise our triglycerides by 5 to 10%. Reducing those refined carbohydrates like white breads, pastries, chips, cookies, candy, those things that are kind of just the more processed or refined carbs. And if you drink, skip alcohol for a few weeks and see if those triglyceride numbers improve. Excess alcohol can definitely increase our triglycerides. Next is balancing our meals with protein and fiber to help to maintain those blood sugars. We've talked about this in many of the episodes, just the importance of blood sugar regulation for hormone stability and overall, decreasing inflammation in the body and decreasing our risk of so many chronic illnesses. But that is, that balancing and regulating our blood sugars is super important in so many areas, but that is also going to help to lower our triglycerides. And then lastly is getting consistent sleep. Less than 6 hours a night can increase our triglycerides by up to 20%. Next, in order to lower total cholesterol and decreasing inflammation in the body, trying to get in those good anti-inflammatory foods or those antioxidants, things like berries, leafy greens, turmeric, curcumin, green teas, all of those things, the more brighter and diverse colors of fruits and veggies, herbs are going to help to lower our total cholesterol and decrease just overall inflammation in the body. Walking after meals can actually help our body. We know that helps with digestion in general, but can actually help our body to process fat and decrease, help us to be more sensitive to insulin and decrease those glucose levels. Again, managing stress. We keep hearing this in all of these different points, but managing our stress, like doing things like deep breathing, journaling, or even like 5 quiet minutes of meditation or relaxation can decrease those cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone. Next, again, prioritizing sleep and adequate hydration. So getting in plenty of fluids. If you can try to get in at least, 80 ounces of those non-caffeinated, non-sugar sweetened drinks during the day, both sleep and hydration can affect our metabolism. And then getting regular checkups, like getting into the doctor, knowing your numbers. I think sometimes people are like, I'd rather just not know, being in denial. Because, if you do have these genetics and you really can't, get some really high numbers down, maybe medication is going to be your best option. Because it's not just about like, if I don't know, then it's not going to do damage. It's doing damage in your body. So, if you are one of those that, regardless of what you do in your lifestyle, we can't bring those numbers down, medication will definitely help to decrease your risk. So that's definitely a talk to have with your doctor. And the last piece of kind of nutrition lifestyle advice for lowering those numbers is thinking about salt and processed foods, right? So while sodium, it doesn't raise cholesterol directly, it can increase blood pressure, can be harder on those kidneys, which can compound our risk, right? So if we have those elevated lipids or, cholesterol, triglycerides, whatnot, as well as high blood pressure, we're at much higher risk of that cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, etc. So focus on things like herbs, spices, citrus, and vinegar for flavoring rather than just jumping straight to that salt shaker. Okay, adding in things that give you flavor, but also maybe add in a little antioxidants, just kind of more natural ways to flavor your foods. You don't need to overhaul your whole diet this week. So you just pick one of these things. Maybe swap your breakfast cereal for oatmeal with some, Greek yogurt with chia and berries, right? Something much more, higher protein as well as higher insoluble fiber. Going to help to promote that good blood sugar control as well as helping to decrease your cholesterol. Maybe go for a walk after dinner instead of, plopping your butt in front of the television or snacking or, lounging around or scrolling on your phone. Go for a little walk, even 5 to 10 minutes to help with that digestion. these small changes can really add up, right? And they're much more sustainable. We're going to be able to do them and stick with them for longer periods of time as compared to like, oh, this, screw this. I can't do this. It's too hard. And you quit, right? Make small changes that you can just try to be consistent with. So, what is your cholesterol story? Maybe you've never thought about it much. Maybe you've got numbers that worry you. Either way, your body is not broken. It's just communicating. It's telling you what's going on in there. And if you're ready for kind of a deeper guided reset around movement, nutrition, and habits that support your hormones and your heart, I'd love for you to join the interest list for my Fit After 50 Plus program. We cover all this. We cover balancing hormones, supporting our metabolism, improving our cholesterol and blood sugar, and getting strong from the inside out. The next round starts winter, spring 2026. So to get on the interest list, it's no obligation, but being on the list gets you first dibs on early bird incentives when our doors open. And I'm going to stick the link in the show notes so you can check it out there if you're interested. Your health is built one decision, one meal, one walk at a time. And you can't change your genetics, but you can change how they show up. Remember, this is about progress over perfection. We're in this for the long haul, and this is your season of strength. Have a fantastic week.